3 weeks ago, a woman named Elena sat in my office, stared out the window, and whispered those exact words. Elena is 56 years old. She is intelligent, she is attractive, she has raised 2 successful children, and she has a career she spent 3 decades building. On paper, Elena is the picture of a life well lived. But in that moment, she looked at me with eyes full of a terrifying, hollow panic, and said, "I look in the mirror, and a stranger stares back. I don't know what she wants. I don't know where she's going. And I am terrified that I am going to do something reckless just to feel alive again." Elena was right to be terrified, because the very next thing she told me was that she was considering leaving her husband of 30 years for a man she met online 3 months ago, a man who, from a clinical perspective, displayed every single red flag of a financial redditor. But Elena couldn't see the red flags. She could only see that for the first time in a decade, someone was looking at her asterisk, not the mother, not the wife, not the employee, but her asterisk. This is not just a story about a midlife crisis. This is a story about the great female identity shift that occurs after 50. It is a biological, psychological, and spiritual restructuring of the female brain and soul. And if you do not understand what is happening to you right now, this shift can become the most dangerous time in your life. It is the period where I see women make the most catastrophic mistakes in love, mistakes that cost them their life savings, their relationships with their adult children, and their dignity. In my years of clinical practice, specializing in female psychology and relationships, I have seen this pattern repeat with haunting precision. You reach a certain age, the estrogen drops, the nest empties, the career peaks or ends, and suddenly, the glue that held your identity together, the caretaking, the striving, the nurturing dissolves. You are left with a void, and nature abhors a vacuum. The danger is not the void itself. The danger is what you rush to fill it with. I am going to walk you through the hidden traps of this identity shift. I am going to explain why smart women fall for toxic men after 50. Why you might feel a sudden, chaotic urge to burn your life down, and how to navigate this transition without losing everything you have built. Before we go deeper into the dark side of this shift, I need you to take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. This isn't about vanity metrics for me. It is about building a community of women who are awake to these psychological patterns. You reach a certain age, the estrogen drops, the nest empties, the career peaks or ends, and suddenly, the glue that held your identity together, the caretaking, the striving, the nurturing dissolves. You are left with a void. And nature abhors a vacuum. The danger is not the void itself. The danger is what you rush to fill it with. I am going to walk you through the hidden traps of this identity shift. By subscribing, you are signaling that you want the truth about female psychology, not the sugar-coated fairy tales. And please, stay with me until the very end of this video. In the final few minutes, I am going to give you a set of specific diagnostic questions you can ask yourself in the privacy of your own mind that will reveal instantly if you are currently in danger of making a catastrophic relationship decision based on this identity crisis. You need to hear those questions. Now, let's look at the first major danger of the post-50 identity shift. I call this the invisibility panic and the subsequent visibility trap. To understand this, you have to understand the culture we live in. For the first 40 or so years of a woman's life, her value is often, unfortunately, tied to her fertility, her youth, and her utility to others. You are seen because you are young, or you are seen because you are useful. You are the mother who fixes things, the wife who organizes things. Then, Somewhere around 50, two things happen simultaneously. Biologically, menopause changes your hormonal landscape. Socially, you begin to experience what psychologists call the invisibility syndrome. You walk into a room, and heads don't turn. You stand at a counter, and people look through you. For a woman who subconsciously or not built her sense of self on being seen and needed, this silence is deafening. It triggers a primal panic. It feels like erasure. If no one sees me, do I exist? Here is the trap. When a woman is in the grip of invisibility panic, she becomes the perfect prey for a specific type of predator. Or she falls into a specific type of bad relationship dynamic. She becomes addicted to high-intensity validation. I had a client, let's call her Margaret. Margaret was 60. She had been divorced for 5 years, and was handling it well, until the silence hit her. She met a man named David. David was charismatic, intense, and loud. He didn't just like Margaret. He was obsessed with her. He told her she was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. He told her she was a goddess. He texted her 50 times a day. To a 20-year-old, this looks like red flag obsession. But to a 60-year-old woman who has felt invisible for 5 years, this feels like water in a desert. Margaret didn't see a predator. She saw a mirror that finally showed her a reflection she liked. She confused his obsession with intimacy. She confused his controlling behavior with protection. The psychological mechanism here is tragic. The identity shift left a hole where her self-worth used to be. David filled that hole with flattery. By the time Margaret realized David was using her home, her car, and her penchant to fund his lifestyle, she was emotionally bankrupt. She had handed over her power because he was the only one telling her she still mattered. The invisibility panic makes you lower your boundaries because you are starving for a witness to your life. You tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, or chaotic behavior because the alternative silence feels like death. But you must understand this. The man who overwhelms you with attention when you are vulnerable is rarely doing it because he sees your soul. He is doing it because he sees your need. Here is your concrete rule for this danger. Validation in your 50s must be internal, never external. If a man's attention feels like a life raft, you are drowning, and you should not be dating. The second danger is what I call the caregiver's withdrawal. This is perhaps the most common pattern I see in women who have spent their lives as mothers or devoted wives. For 20 or 30 years, your identity was the giver. You were the one who fixed the scraped knees, managed the household budget, soothed the husband's ego, and organized the social calendar. Your brain is literally wired to solve other people's problems. It gives you a dopamine hit. It makes you feel competent and worthy. Then, the kids leave. The husband might be gone, or he might be self-sufficient, or perhaps you are widowed. Suddenly, you have all this fixing energy, and nowhere to direct it. You are a high-performance engine revving in neutral. The trap is that you go out into the dating world, and you don't look for a partner. You look for a project. You look for a broken bird. I saw this with a woman named Janice. Janice was a retired nurse, 55. She started dating a man who was a misunderstood genius, which is usually code for unemployed and difficult. He had health issues, he had financial trouble, he had a messy relationship with his own children. All her friends said, "Janice, run." But Janice didn't run. She leaned in. Why? Because fixing him made her feel like herself again. You end up exhausting your emotional reserves and your financial nest egg on a man who has no intention of getting better. Because if he got better, you wouldn't be needed anymore. And deep down, you are terrified that if you aren't needed, you aren't loved. You have to realize that in this second half of life, the goal is not to be useful to another person. The goal is to be with another person. There is a massive difference. You are moving from a vertical dynamic where you are pulling someone up to a horizontal dynamic where you are walking side by side. If you find yourself nursing a grown man, managing his emotions, or fixing his life, you are not in love. You are in a relapse of your caregiving addiction. Here is your concrete rule for this danger. Never nurse a grown man. If his problems are the main topic of your conversations, you are his therapist or his mother, not his partner. The third danger is even more subtle, and it speaks to the biological clock, but not in the way we think of it in our 30s. I call this the time scarcity compromise. In your 30s, the clock ticks for fertility. In your 50s and 60s, the clock ticks for mortality. You become acutely aware that you have more years behind you than ahead of you. This can provoke a profound existential anxiety. You look at the calendar and think, I don't want to die alone. The third danger is even more subtle, and it speaks to the biological clock, but not in the way we think of it in our 30s. I call this the time scarcity compromise. In your 30s, the clock ticks for fertility. In your 50s and 60s, the clock ticks for mortality. You become acutely aware that you have more years behind you than ahead of you. This can provoke a profound existential anxiety. You look at the calendar and think, I don't want to die alone. I don't want to be old and alone. This might be my last chance. This scarcity mindset is the enemy of wise decision-making. When you believe you are shopping at the last chance saloon, you buy things you would never have touched 20 years ago. You compromise on your core values. You compromise on your peace. I worked with a woman named Carol, 62. She met a man who was fine, just fine. He wasn't kind, he wasn't particularly interesting. He was stingy with his money and his affection, and he often made little cutting remarks about her appearance. But Carol stayed. When I asked her why, she said, he's a warm body, isn't he? It's better than looking at the four walls. Is it really better? The identity shift here is the shift from hopeful future to fearful end. You stop identifying as a woman with potential and start identifying as a woman with a deadline. Just fine. He wasn't kind, he wasn't particularly interesting, he was stingy with his money and his affection, and he often made little cutting remarks about her appearance. But Carol stayed. When I asked her why, she said, he's a warm body, isn't he? It's better than looking at the four walls. Is it really better? The identity shift here is the shift from hopeful future to fearful end. This makes you vulnerable to settling for misery just to avoid solitude. But what Carol didn't realize is that loneliness within a bad relationship is 1,000 times more corrosive than the solitude of living alone. The solitude of living alone can be peaceful, it can be creative. The loneliness of sleeping next to a man who doesn't respect you is a slow poison that attacks your immune system, your sleep, and your self. The time scarcity compromise tells you that something is better than nothing. My clinical experience tells me the opposite. A bad partner in your 60s and 70s is not just an annoyance. They are a health hazard. The stress of walking on eggshells raises your cortisol levels, impacts your heart health, and drains the energy you need to enjoy your golden years. You are trading your actual life expectancy for the illusion of companionship. Here is your concrete rule for this danger. It is infinitely better to be alone than to be badly accompanied. Your peace is your most valuable asset after 50. Do not sell it for a warm body. The fourth danger is the rebellion against the good girl. This is a fascinating and explosive pattern I see frequently. Many women of this generation were raised to be good girls. Be polite, be modest, be sexually restrained, be accommodating. You followed the rules for 50 years. You repressed your desires. You put everyone else first. Then, the identity shift hits. The hormones change. And, for some women, this doesn't manifest as a lowering of energy, but as a sudden volcanic eruption of, I don't care anymore. It is a second adolescence. It is a rebellion. This can be a beautiful thing, reclaiming your voice, your art, your style. But when it manifests in relationships without wisdom, it can be destructive. I see women who have been stable and prudent their whole lives suddenly engaging in reckless affairs, often with inappropriate partners, men who are married, men who are dangerously unstable, or bad boys from their past. Why? Because they want to feel something. They want to break out of the cage of the good wife or the responsible mother. They want to prove they are still sexually viable, still wild, still alive. I had a client, Diane, 58, married for 35 years to a good, boring man. She started an affair with her tennis instructor, a man known for being a player. She told me, I know he's bad news, but he makes me feel like a teenager. She was willing to blow up her family, her reputation, and her financial security for the thrill of rebellion. She wasn't in love with the tennis instructor. She was in love with the version of herself that broke the rules. She was using him to murder the good girl identity she had grown to hate. The danger here is that you are using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. You can reclaim your sexuality and your autonomy without destroying your life's foundation. The rebellion trap seduces you into thinking that destruction is the same thing as liberation. It isn't. Liberation is building a life that fits you. Destruction is just leaving yourself in the rubble. Here is your concrete rule for this danger. Chemistry is not compatibility, and adrenaline is not love. Do not burn down your house just to feel the heat. Now, I want to talk about a fifth danger, one that is rarely discussed but is absolutely critical for women over 50. This is the financial merger trap. When you are young and you get married, you build a life together from zero. You merge your nothing with his nothing, and you build something. But when you fall in love after 50, you are bringing two fully built castles together. You have assets, a home, a pension, an inheritance for your children. His identity shift often makes women want to merge everything quickly to prove the relationship is real. There is a romantic notion that what's mine is yours. But, in later life, this is not romance. It is financial suicide. I have seen too many women who, in a fit of romantic optimism and identity confusion, trying to be the trusting partner, put a new partner's name on a deed, or co-sign a loan, or drain a savings account to help him get back on his feet. You must remember, you are not just responsible for yourself anymore. You are the custodian of your past labor. That money represents the thousands of hours you worked, the sacrifices you made. It is your safety net for your old age. It is your legacy for your children. The predator, or even just the irresponsible man, loves a woman undergoing an identity crisis because she is often willing to pay for the feeling of security. He moves into her house. He drives her car. He slowly erodes her financial boundaries. And because she is afraid of losing the relationship and the new identity of beloved partner, she lets it happen. Here is your concrete rule for this danger. Autonomy is the ultimate aphrodisiac. Keep your finances separate. True love does not require a PIN code or a deed transfer. These patterns, the invisibility panic, the caregiver's withdrawal, the time scarcity compromise, the rebellion, and the financial merger, all symptoms of the same root cause. You are trying to find yourself in the reflection of a man, and the consequences of ignoring these patterns escalate quickly. We are not just talking about a broken heart. We are talking about broken health. I have seen women in their 60s develop severe autoimmune disorders, chronic insomnia, and high blood pressure, all directly linked to the stress of a toxic late-life relationship. Your body at 60 does not have the resilience it had at 30. It cannot process the cortisol of constant drama. A bad relationship can quite literally take years off your life. We are also talking about family rupture. This is the heartbreaking emotional legacy you risk destroying. When you become consumed by a toxic new identity or a predatory partner, your adult children watch in horror. They see their mother disappearing. They see her making choices that endanger her future. They try to warn her, and she attacks them, defending the man. I have seen families cut contact. I have seen grandmothers denied access to grandchildren because the new boyfriend is unsafe, or the grandmother has become so erratic that the children need to protect their own families. Ask yourself, is this man worth losing your tribe for? So, what is the alternative? If the old you is gone and the new you is vulnerable, where do you stand? The solution lies in what Jungian psychology calls the archetype of the crone or the sage. Now, I know the word crone sounds negative in our culture, but originally it meant the crowned one, the wise woman. The shift after 50 is an invitation to step into your sovereignty. It is time to stop being the object of someone else's life, the mother, the wife, the employee, and become the subject of your own. Healthy love after 50 looks different. It often takes the form of living apart together. You have your home, he has his. You come together for companionship, for travel, for intimacy, but you retreat to your own sanctuaries. You do not merge your bank accounts. You do not nurse him. You do not ask him to validate your existence. You bring your full, complete self to the table, and if he cannot meet you there, you eat alone and you enjoy the meal. I know a woman, Patricia, who got this right. At 65, she met a man. She told him on the first date, I have a full life. I paint, I see my grandkids, I love my garden. I am looking for a companion to share the good times, not a nurse and not a banker. They have been together 10 years. They live in separate houses 5 miles apart. They spend weekends together, they are madly in love, but they are free. That is the gold standard. Now, as I promised at the beginning, I want to give you a self-diagnostic test. I want you to close your eyes for a moment, if it's safe to do so, and ask yourself these questions. Be brutally honest. Question 1. Do I feel calmer when I am with him, or am I constantly anxious about what he is thinking or doing? Question 2. Am I hiding parts of this relationship from my children or my oldest friends because I know they wouldn't approve? Secrecy is the hallmark of shame, not love. Question 3. Is the relationship balanced? Am I giving 80% of the effort, the money, and the planning, while he gives 20%? Question 4. If he left tomorrow, would I be heartbroken because I miss him ? Or would I be panicked because I don't want to be alone ? Question 5. Do I feel like I have to buy his love with gifts, with housing, or by solving his problems? Question 6. Am I changing my core values, my appearance, or my opinions to ensure he stays? If you answered yes to hiding things, yes to the anxiety, or yes to the imbalance, you are in the danger zone. You are trying to fill the identity void with a person who does not fit. The truth about the female identity shift after 50 is that it is a fire. The greatest love story of your life, right now, needs to be with yourself. Because only when you know who you are, and you like who you are, will you be safe to let someone else love you too. Thank you for watching. If this spoke to you, please share it with a friend who might need to hear it. And remember, Your legacy is not just what you leave behind. It is how you live right now.